and welcome to the University of Suffolk Business Engagement Podcast. I'm Gemma Matton, and today we're talking about collaboration, workforce development, and a new initiative designed to support HR professionals across Suffolk. I'm joined by Cathy Donison, who is developing a new HR support network that will bring together HR professionals from a range of industries to share ideas, discuss challenges, and to learn from one another through roundtable discussions. I'm also joined by my colleague, Graham Darby, from the University of Suffolk, who will be discussing why supporting initiatives like this is so important to both businesses and the university. Thank you both for joining me today.
Great to be here. Thanks, Gemma.
Thanks, Gemma. We're looking forward to it.
So, Cathy, could you start by telling us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to create this HR support group?
Yeah, sure, certainly. So my background was in corporate technology organisation, where I was sales and marketing lead, and also spent a lot of time in training and development, specifically in the learning development function. And for the last 15 years, I've been working on leadership development programs, an executive coach, and I've been working independently with lots of organisations. One of the things that I did in 2014, 2015 was studied my master's here, my MBA, and my research focus was on the future of leadership development and specifically, strategically, how organisations can help measure impact. And that's really where this support network and the idea has come from, because I work with a lot of HR leaders who have quite a lonely job sometimes, and actually having some peers to bounce off and get some ideas from and to help them think more strategically rather than operationally seems to be a sweet spot right now. So that's a little bit of background on why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So what is the main aim of the network? So how do you see the roundtable sessions working in practice?
So at the moment, we've piloted 2 online, and it's been a combination of consultants such as myself, so coaches and consultants who work independently, but also for HR leaders who perhaps work in smaller organisations, so don't have a broad HR team. And we come together once a month or once every 6 months, and we discuss a number of topics, what seems to be pertinent at the time. It's not networking, so we're not exchanging business cards per se. It's more about what are the practical things that we have seen within our own organisations or within businesses that we've been working with that might be helpful, and how do we sort of untie some of the knotty problems that we all tend to be working on. At the moment, we've been doing them online, but there is certainly an appetite from the first 2 that we've run to do something perhaps more face-to-face, go back to doing traditional face-to-face type stuff as well. So yeah, it's early days, but it seems to be getting some traction.
Fabulous. So, and so what kind of challenges or topics do you think HR professionals across Suffolk are most wanting to discuss right now?
Really interesting question. I think there's a universal challenge, not just for Suffolk, in that HR organisations are becoming or having to become more strategic and much more data-led to justify budgets, to justify investment. The research that I conducted when I was here studying at the university was that about 43% of the organisations that I researched didn't have any measurement at all in terms of their leadership and management development specifically. So they were putting on a lot of training programs with a huge cost and huge investment of time, effort, money, budget, resources, but weren't able to demonstrate the impact that it was having, not only for the participants, but more at the organisational level. And I think that has become a real challenge, as certainly learning and development functions need to start thinking more strategically about how do they justify their investment, how do they justify getting budget allocation, and really thinking about the impact of training development interventions on the organisation, and more importantly, the return on investment and where that sits.
Absolutely. So from an employer perspective, what kind of return on investment do you think organisations could see from encouraging their HR teams to take part in this initiative?
I think cross-collaboration would be the first thing that comes to mind. A lot of certainly a lot of HR teams tend to work in silos. because of the personnel data that they hold, sometimes they have lots of confidential stuff that they need to hold on to, and that can be quite challenging. So they don't necessarily have a network within their organizations for support. So one thing is about how do you collaborate with people outside your organization, but also across industries. So if you're in the manufacturing sector, what can you learn from technology? What can you learn from public sector, for example? So the idea is that to be able to bring a group together who have new input, fresh thinking, collaboration, safe space to kind of think out loud for some of those challenges, and help fix issues and solve problems together rather than in isolation. So I think from a business perspective, it really helps to bring that external perspective back into the HR function.
Absolutely. And say, because within HR, it doesn't really matter what industry you're in, they're going to be coming across situations that they'll all be dealing with, and people would have had experiences that others may not have faced yet, or experiences that they have faced that they didn't know how to work with. So I think it's definitely having that collaboration with other HR professionals is definitely a major pull on for this. So Graham, from the university's perspective, why is it important for the University of Suffolk to support projects and networks like this?
Well, the primary role of our university, as in any university, is to educate people. And if we can help educate a broader audience than just the students who are taking part in our courses, then we will try and facilitate that as much as we possibly can. Because the transfer of best practice, which is what Kathy is setting out to do, is a key part of educating people for the betterment of the community and their businesses.
And so how does facilitating these kinds of business engagement events help local organisations across Suffolk?
I think we are seen as an organisation that can act as a convener, and we can bring people together. So it's irrespective of what businesses they're operating, the sectors they're operating in. We as a university have a role to play in allowing them to voice their opinions and voice their problems. And I think that our role really is to understand what's happening with local businesses, because we need to feed back into our institution what problems people are having, and see if we can try and address those problems, either through developing new courses, new apprenticeships, or just giving people the opportunity to talk to each other in a relatively safe environment, and they can share their experiences.
Absolutely. So why is building stronger relationships with businesses and industry important for the university itself?
I think this is fundamental to our development going forward. We need to understand what's happening in our local economy. So, for example, what is the impact of a project such as Sizewell going to have on employment prospects for people, and for the impact it may have across the broader county? And the university is very much linked to understanding that need and bringing that need to the fore and pulling people together to address the need, because we can't do everything on our own. And so therefore we want to ensure that the people who can actually make the difference are working together.
Absolutely. So how do initiatives like this align with the university's wider role in supporting skills, workforce development, and the Suffolk economy?
So as a university, we need to look out 5-10 years in the future and work through what skills are going to be required, not just for projects like Sizewell, but right across the county. Because then we can start to put courses together, apprenticeships together, training programs, which will address those particular needs. And not just for individual companies like the Sizewell project, but for all employers, because the issues that are going to be faced will affect everybody. And that's why I think things like a roundtable looking at specific issues such as HR and what the issues that they need to address, that's the role the university can do, because it means that people are not seen as being on their own.
So, Kathy, a big focus for the University of Suffolk is apprenticeships and upskilling. So, from a HR perspective, how important is it for businesses to continue investing in employee development?
It's critical. It's critical for so many different reasons. You could just think about the impact that AI is having on organisations right now, and how the threat of people losing their jobs. This is, the Industrial Revolution all over again.
Yes.
But what it means is that we need to be investing in different skills. and making sure that our human capital, if you like, within the workforce is being upskilled to meet the demands of modern business practices or the workplace of the future.
Absolutely. So how can apprenticeships and professional development opportunities help businesses improve retention, progression, and workforce resilience?
In a number of different ways. So we start thinking about retention, which is a key factor that a lot of HR leaders are facing right now. By saying that we're going to be investing in apprenticeships and professional development whilst you are an employee of an organisation signals we want to keep you, we're interested in your progression, and we're interested in your growth. PricewaterhouseCoopers did a study about 10 years ago and looked at the trends of the emerging leaders within organisations or the emerging generation. And actually, they're less likely to want a job for life. They are going to want to acquire skills. And so, therefore, those employers that offer skills, training, professional accreditation and development opportunities are the ones that are likely to not only attract the right talent, but hold on to them as well. And from a resilience perspective, what you do is you then retain that knowledge. So rather than risking losing that knowledge, and you're having those single points of failure, the retention of that knowledge is critical to organisational resilience.
Absolutely. And obviously you've got the levy as well, which is it's underutilised, and I don't think a lot of employers actually realise that they have that money that's sitting there. And I think I've said it before in other podcasts, a £3 billion has gone back to the government because it's not being utilised, and that fund is there to help and support their employees to progress them and hopefully advance them within their career. Yeah, so you've obviously got the units that as well that are coming in. So obviously the roundtables can obviously discuss those and make sure that everyone is fully understanding of that funding that's there. So Graham, how does the university support employers in Suffolk with apprenticeships and workforce development initiatives?
Well, obviously, we have a broad range of apprenticeships which are geared towards addressing the skills needs for local employers, as well as providing CPD courses, training courses. But I think there's one perhaps good example of how we work with local employers, and that's the development of environmental health officers who work in district councils. We were approached by one of the local district councils a couple of years ago to say that they were struggling to recruit the required number of environmental health officers, and could we run training courses or apprenticeships. On the back of that, we developed an apprenticeship at a degree level, which provides environmental health officers with the accreditation they need to do the job for local councils. And we're now rolling that out to more councils across Suffolk and across Norfolk and to Essex and Cambridgeshire to address a specific need. And that is a perfect example of how planning long-term, but also trying to address the needs of the local employers.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we do try and get as many of the employers' involvement as much as possible, just to make sure we're addressing everything that their needs are, their requirements within the apprenticeships.
Yeah, we're very keen to ensure that the employer is involved in the development of the course, the curriculum design, how we deliver the course as well, to ensure that they're getting the best out of it, as well as the apprentices or the trainees.
So finally, Kathy, so what are your hopes for the future of the HR Support Network, and what would you say to HR professionals who may be interested in getting involved?
So my hope is that it becomes something that's self-supporting and sustainable. And what do I mean by that? This isn't something where we're necessarily picking the agenda. The group comes to the sessions and decides what are the burning topics, what are the things that's going to be most useful for us to collaborate on right now. And it's a place where HR professionals feel that they have a home to go to when they're wrestling with a particular HR issue. So I guess from a logistical and operational perspective, that would be the way that I would hope that it runs, and we can have many different groups meeting either online or face-to-face. Most importantly, though, I think it's about how those conversations spark HR professionals to feel supported to think more strategically. And I think that's part of the issue is that sometimes with smaller organisations in particular, HR tends to be a very generalist function. They're responsible for payroll and interviews, and actually it's far more strategic than that. And so hopefully this network will help them to start thinking about the broader role and the broader impact and the strategic importance of HR in the organisation.
Fair. And how would they get in contact with you to be able to get on board with this?
Well, they can contact me they can drop me an email. I am Cathie, Cathie, at leadershipimpact.co.uk. Look me up on LinkedIn. There's not many Cathie Donaldsons. And certainly I'll have a University of Suffolk logo next to my profile as well. So hopefully people can find me there.
Fabulous. And we'll also put a link at the end of the podcast as well. So Cathie and Graham, thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Gemma. It's been great to be here.
Gemma, it's been a pleasure talking to you about how we transfer best practice and how we can help local businesses.
It's clear that creating spaces for collaboration, shared learning and professional development can bring real value to individuals, organisations and the wider Suffolk economy. At the University of Suffolk, we're proud to support initiatives that strengthen business connections and help develop the skilled workforce our region needs for the future. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the University of Suffolk Business Engagement Podcast.